Hi friends, it's Good Friday. Good Friday commemorates the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. It's a day of solemn reflection that is shared by most Christians around the world. During Mass on Good Friday, Christians reflect on the pain and suffering that Jesus had to endure for us. He was flogged, given a crown of thorns, berated and ridiculed, and made to burden the weight of his cross as he was forced to carry it to the site of his execution. The first story that we're going to read today is Jesus on trial. That night, Jesus was marched into the city of Jerusalem to the great house of the high priest Caiaphas. Inside Caiaphas's mansion, Jesus was quizzed by Annas, the former high priest. What did he think about ancient holy writings? What miracles did he claim to have worked? And who did he think he was? Jesus refused to answer and was marched to a room full of Jewish officials. They had witnesses who they had paid to lie, accusing Jesus of saying and doing things that were against Jewish law. But the witnesses couldn't get their story straight. Finally, Caiaphas hissed, "I order you to tell us, under solemn oath, whether you think you are the Son of God." "I am," he said with grace, "and one day you will see the Son of Man seated at the right hand of the Father in heaven." "Blasphemy!" roared Caiaphas, a satisfied gleam in his eye. Blasphemy was the crime of lying against God, which was the punishment was death. In triumph, the Jewish elders had Jesus blindfolded. They slapped and kicked him, shouting, "Prophesy for us now, Messiah. Guess who hit you?" And in the morning, they had Jesus brought in front of the Roman governor Pontius Pilate. Only he could approve an execution. The news spread around the city, and an enormous crowd gathered outside. Pilate asked Jesus many more questions. "Are you really a king? Have you been plotting against the Roman government? Have you been planning a rebellion?" Perplexed, Pilate couldn't find that Jesus had done anything wrong. He ordered that Jesus also be questioned by Herod, the ruler of Galilee, who was in Jerusalem at that time. But Herod couldn't find Jesus guilty of anything either. Even Pilate's wife told him that she had a dream in which Jesus of Nazareth was innocent of all charges. "Have nothing further to do with him," she advised her husband. Pilate made his decision. He went out onto the balcony of his judgment hall and announced to the waiting crowds, "This man has done nothing to deserve death. He shall be whipped and let go." And Jesus was dragged off for his punishment. Meanwhile, Jewish officials had mingled with the crowds, persuading them that Jesus was guilty of blasphemy. As Pilate turned to go back into his judgment hall, the people sent up cries of, "Kill him! Kill Jesus of Nazareth!" But the Roman governor was deeply disturbed, for he did not know what for. Suddenly he had an idea. Pilate remembered that it was Passover, and there was a custom for the governors to release one prisoner of the people's choice. In the cells was a murderer named Barabbas. Pilate felt sure that the people would rather have Jesus released than a violent killer. "Who shall I pardon, Barabbas or Jesus of Nazareth?" Pilate asked the crowd. He couldn't believe his ears when he heard the shouts come back. "Barabbas!" Pilate ordered that Jesus be brought in front of him once more. He had been whipped until blood poured down his back. The guards had mocked him as the king of the Jews too, by pressing a crown of thorns onto his head and throwing a cloak around his shoulders. Now the crowd jeered too. Pilate had enough. He called for water and a towel and washed his hands in front of everyone. "I cleanse myself of this man's blood," he announced. Then Barabbas was released and Jesus was led away to be crucified.